Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to today's episode of CAIR on Air, the Muslim Action Hour. I'm Edward Ahmed Mitchell, the Deputy Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, here with my host, Ayana Jean, our Communications Coordinator. Assalamu alaikum, Ayan. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum, Edward. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. So we want to thank everyone for joining us for today's episode of CAIR on Air. A special thank you to our listeners on American Muslim 360, and a special thank you to everyone watching online. If you have any questions or comments you'd like to pose or make during today's program, you can put them in the comments on Facebook, and we'll try to take those as we go, inshallah. I want to turn it over to Ayan to discuss the topic of today's program.
Thank you, Edward. So I'm sure many people saw yesterday the riots at the Capitol, and that happened as Congress was coming together to certify Electoral College votes. So there were some protests, and that's what started the whole incident. And I have a little video that we're going to play before we get started that's going to give a little more background before we get into the topic.
Okay, let's take a look. Thank you. It's interesting because, you know, we all know about what happened at the Capitol building in DC yesterday, but there were also demonstrations in places around the country. I'm in Georgia right now. At our Georgia state capitol, we had far-right extremists supporting President Trump breach our Capitol building. The Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, had to be evacuated from the building. He's been a target of President Trump's ire. So this happened, you know, all around the country to different degrees, but it was the worst. In DC, we all saw literally tens of thousands of far-right extremist Trump supporters surround the Capitol building, overwhelm the police, breach the Capitol walls, climb the walls, get all the way to the Senate chamber, forcing legislators to retreat, to go into secured areas. 4 people died. Numerous people were injured. It's unbelievable. And Ayan, I think the thing that we have to note here is that this all began with President Trump hosting a rally earlier in the morning in which he instigated people to go to the Capitol to speak out against the ongoing electoral certification of President-elect Biden's win. And so now we're in a whole new different world, discussions of what's going to happen next. What does this mean for our community? I want to note before we bring on our guests that the CAIR family is safe. Our office is fine. CAIR staff is fine. No one from our office was near the area or injured in this incident, alhamdulillah. And so now, you know, we look to the future and how we're going to address this. So, Ayan, go ahead.
Comparing this was happening in a lot of other places in the country, I think what's also significant about it happening at the Capitol is it's so surprising that something that it even got to that point, right? Like you would expect so much security at the Capitol, and for it to be very difficult to make it there in the nation's, you know, at the Capitol building. You've been to Jumu'ah at the Capitol, right? Like we can't even take water inside of the building. So it's just surprising that that many people were able to storm into the building like that.
Yeah. And in fact, to some extent, maybe it's not surprising. Remember, we all know what happened when there were Black Lives Matter protests in DC over the summer. They were met with overwhelming force from law enforcement, tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper spray. You had, you know, people wearing armed soldiers wearing masks all across the Lincoln Memorial. Overwhelming show of force, but yet when a bunch of far-right, mostly white male Trump supporters invade DC and surround the Capitol building, no National Guard called out. The police retreat. You had some police officers. One police officer was shown helping a woman by the hand out of the building, another taking a selfie. And then the other officers did not have the support they needed to fight back. And so raised all sorts of questions about why this happened. But I think those of us who are Muslim, those of us who are people of color, know why this was allowed to happen, and know that this would have never happened if 10,000 Black people or Muslims or Latinos had attempted to surround and storm the Capitol building.
And that's the overwhelming response we're seeing on social media. Everything, if you go scrolling through Twitter, every comment is about how comparing what happened during the BLM protest. People are reposting their images and videos of when they were at the protest, when they were getting tear gassed and with rubber bullets.
Beaten up, even reporters.
Yeah. One stood out to me. It was an actual reporter. He said that he covered the BLM protests, and he said, what I saw then and what I'm seeing right now is there is just the difference. It's like astonishing, the difference in how they handled the situations.
Yeah, it is. Again, it's not. I mean, I am not shocked. The Black community has seen this over and over again. We already know the difference between how the government reacts to us when we protest peacefully and to far-right extremists when they protest violently. So look, to discuss this, Ayan, let's bring on our first guest. I'll let you do the honors of introducing him.
So we're going to bring on Brother Nihad. He's going to give a statement about how CAIR responded to the situation.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Nihad.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, Brother Nihad, you obviously have been a staple of DC for a long time. I doubt you ever imagined something like this would happen so close to our office, so close to where you work and live, and where we have so many community members. What's your reaction to what happened yesterday? And where do we go from here as the Muslim community, as the American country? Where do we go from here? What's your reaction?
Okay, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ayan and Edward, I hope you're doing well and safe, inshallah.
Yeah.
And likewise to my brothers and sisters who are watching and our friends who are watching on Facebook. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And we pray for safety and peace during this very, very difficult and trying time. As you said, Edward and Ayan, the fact that CAIR is very, very close to physically to what happened yesterday. For those who do not know, our headquarters in Washington, D.C. is only 2 blocks away from the insurrection that happened yesterday. Alhamdulillah, all praise be to God. All our staff are safe because none of them were there, and the building is safe. And we have been monitoring the situation very closely. It is very, very sad to see what happened. It was of historic magnitude. Not only the chaos, but the breach, an assault on our liberty and our democracy, on the rule of law, on one of the most protected buildings on earth. That's where decisions are made. That's where policies that impact us and impact people around the world take place. I work there, as you know, very closely. And for the past 25 years, I have been entering this building, the state capitol. I go there for meetings. I go there for Jum'ah. I go there when I have guests to show them around. And obviously, I and other people, look different. We're Muslim, we're people of color. The level of securities that we go through, although many guards, they know me, they have seen me over the years, they don't take a chance. They monitor you, they surveil you. You cannot, as Ayan said, you cannot take a small bottle of water inside. The heavy security is mind-boggling. And imagine if there are, as you, Edward, said, if we have 10,000 people like me, known and announced to go there to have a public protest, to petition the government, or even to do a civic, work there. There will be like drones. There will be helicopters. There will be hidden, surveillance of all of us. And God forbid, if any people of color in big numbers you know, tried to or attempted to commit a violent act, the body count will be in the hundreds. People will be gunned down without mercy. And that is the problem that we are seeing today. What happened today is what's been happening in the United States for hundreds of years. It is a matter of race. It is the crisis of race. It is the fact that white people have certain privilege and entitlement, that they can do anything and they can get away with it. And I'm sorry, I'm not stereotyping my white brothers and sisters, but let's face it, this is about race, this is about color, this is about privilege, this is about the rule of law, this is about two systems of justice in this country. One set of justice is for people of color, for immigrants, for African Americans, for the minority, who they will be mercilessly met with the full force of the law and the government and weapons whenever there is any minute level of violence. It will be faced with a crushing force from the government, and there will be casualties without mercy. And another set of laws for people, for white people. And what happened yesterday is just the prime example that people can breach the state capitol. They can disrupt the work of Congress. They can take people hostage. They can ransack, as we have seen, offices. They can loot. They can steal, and they will walk away. And police officers will be taken with them selfies. They will open doors for them, and no one can tell us that this was unpredicted. It was predicted, but it was tolerated because those who are in charge are not willing to stand up for the white powerful thugs that we have seen yesterday. So moving forward, this is of historic magnitude, that it will be in the memory of people for centuries. So, speak on of our democracy, for 200 years, there has been a smooth and peaceful transition of power. And despite that, Congress session, and they were able to certify the fact that President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris will be the leaders of this nation on January 20th. And those people who try to breach and intimidate and hijack the country, they failed, and they will continue to fail. But we call for the government not to just look for cameras to spot these people. They are known. They are known. The government knows these people. They have to hold them accountable. They have to prosecute them. And not only that, they have to prosecute the person who instigated them, the person who rallied them, the person who told them to go and do this, not only yesterday, but for 5 years. There are millions of people who have been listening to this liar, and they have been processing and living his lies and implementing his lies. He is, if not more, accountable than those perpetrators who committed violence and havoc yesterday. And we call on the Congress, we call on our government to impeach Trump. And I call personally, and I would like my organization and other organizations to mobilize Americans to contact their members of Congress and invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Donald Trump from the presidency of the United States for the next few days. He is a danger to our democracy. In fact, he's the biggest threat to our democracy and our peace as Americans. And he should be removed in the most and robust legal measures immediately. We as Americans cannot afford one more day under President Trump, because our security, our safety, our future, our democracy are in danger. So I call on everyone to identify their members of Congress, the two senators and the congressional representative, and spend like 1 minute and ask them to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from his office. People say, oh, it's only 13 days and it's going to be over. Well, Trump has access to the nuclear code. He can start a nuclear war. He can, he can destroy people. He can destroy nations. He is the commander in chief, and our army is disciplined, and they will take orders. I hope if he commits any crime by ordering our armed forces to commit any violent act against Americans or other people, that they will stand down, that they will not listen to this crazy and dangerous man. And looking forward to your question, Ayan and Edward, beyond this point, I think we have to be more engaged with the new and incoming administration of the Biden administration. We have to be more confident that will affect change, that we will hold the next administration also to the highest standard of accountability. And we have to be more confident that the expectations, the proposed initiatives and reforms that we as American citizens and in particular Muslims, we look forward to working with this administration and Congress now that Democrats have full control of the House and the Senate and the White House. We're not speaking as partisans, but the fact that we could not do any work under the Trump administration. Now, in the next year and more, we really have to engage this new administration and request and demand change. For example, the abolishing of the terrorist watch list, where there is 1.2 million people on it. Imagine, brothers and sisters, if the US government was using the same surveillance mechanism and databases of white supremacists as they have done to Muslims, all of these thugs that we have seen yesterday, they would be picked one by one, because the government would have put the resources in the right place. Our government has spent every year more than $700 billion on defense, and they failed yesterday to defend our democracy, to defend and protect the legislatures, to secure our democracy into a peaceful transition. And the reason why is because they selectively have been putting resources against the wrong and innocent people, including the people of color, the African American community, and Muslims. And they ignored willingly and intentionally to focus on white supremacist terrorists in the United States who are becoming and have been the biggest threat to our national security and our existence. So I hope that we will focus our agenda as we move forward to be confident to push the incoming administration into serious reform and change to secure our future, inshallah.
Inshallah. Brother Nihad, thank you so much. Jazakallah khairan for those thoughts. Please stay safe in DC, and inshallah, hopefully we will get through the next 13 days peacefully, safely, and also with accountability, inshallah. As Brother Nihad said, please contact your lawmakers. CAIR is supporting the removal of President Trump from office. We believe that his cabinet should invoke the 25th Amendment. Failing that, we believe that Congress should impeach him again and remove him from office before his term ends, to make sure that he does not do anything else that could cause the loss of more human life. 4 people died yesterday. Wasn't just a protest, wasn't just a riot. Literally, people died yesterday. And we don't want to see this happen to anyone else over the next 13 days. So thank you so much, Brother Nihad. Inshallah, we'll see you.
Keep up.
Inshallah. And for our next guest, we want to bring on Robert McCaw, the Government Affairs Director of CAIR National. Assalamu alaikum, Robert. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How's my audio?
It's okay. A little choppy. Let's work with it and see what we can do, inshallah. There's a bit of a delay. Maybe try turning the camera off and turning it back on. Okay, well, Robert works on that. So again, Ian, can we put on the crying at the bottom there, the call to action for the community?
Yeah. And while Robert fixes his audio, I also wanted to bring up Brother Nihad. He mentioned, he brought up peaceful protests, and I think that's something that CAIR has been putting out there, that we definitely support people's right to peaceful protests. And we also keep mentioning the BLM protests and how there was a difference in that. And I want to acknowledge that there's something a little uncomfortable, I think, about comparing the two, because the biggest difference is the fact that yesterday was not a peaceful protest, right? Like what we saw with BLM and a lot of those when people were protesting over the summer, it did not escalate like we saw with this, and still force was used against those. So I just think that that's something that we do need to acknowledge. Like, while we are comparing, look at the difference between the two, the foundations themselves were very different. The protests themselves were very different. So,
all right, why do you have the government reacting with such force to people who protest peacefully, but not with such force to people who riot violently, right? And by the way, that's not to say that all of the protests that happened last summer were peaceful. They weren't. There was some violence, there was some arson, there was some of those things happened. But this protest that happened at the Capitol was unprecedented. I mean, they took over the heart of the American government. The only thing more significant they could have done was to target the White House, which they weren't going to do because they support the man in the White House. So it's truly remarkable. Robert, okay, we have you back.
Yep, I have headphones on. The audio is good. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Robert. So, Robert, tell us, we talked with Brother Nihad about the ask, that we're making on Congress and on the cabinet. Practically, how would all this work? How would the 25th Amendment work? How would impeachment work, given how little time we have before he's supposed to leave office anyway?
Yeah, two very good questions that are really relevant right now. So the 25th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution empowers the vice president and his cabinet, the president's cabinet, which is made up of at least 15 offices, sometimes it's expanded, if they by majority feel as if the president is incapable of carrying out the duties of office. Usually that is in cases of, one would think insanity or death, or near death. These are cases in which, when the Constitution was amended, that this is what was planned for. If the president is incapacitated, can we hand over the reins of power? There's a process to do so. So by a simple majority of the president's cabinet and the vice president, they can vote the president out of office, saying he's incapable of carrying out the duties of the office. That cannot occur, though. Congress has the power to not only impeach the president, which is a sanction against him, but then remove him from office by a majority vote. And, articles of impeachment, they would be filed in the House. There would be a hearing, a trial per se, and a vote on it, and it would also be sent to the Senate. This normally, by tradition, we spoke about this before the program, it takes weeks or months in planning, and in execution, it takes weeks in action. But that is only by tradition. This could actually all be done in the course of a day or two if Congress had the political will to do this. So, as I just heard my executive director, Nihad Awad, mention, that CAIR is calling people to contact their members of Congress should the president's cabinet fail to remove him from office using the 25th article of the Constitution, to move forward with articles of impeachment. And from what I understand, Sister Ilhan Omar has already drafted articles of impeachment. And so, what we need to do is actually have these introduced, have Congress take this seriously, have it put on the calendar, have Congress act quickly. Anything can happen when there's a political will to do that, and political will is only developed when constituents, people who elect their members to Congress, reach out to their members. So by tomorrow morning, CAIR is going to set up an action alert urging each and every member of Congress to impeach the president should his cabinet fail to remove him from office.
All right, so thank you, Robert, for that information, and we will see what happens, inshallah. Obviously, events are fast moving. Elaine Chao, the transportation secretary, has resigned. Senator Schumer, House Speaker Pelosi have called for President Trump's removal. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But one way or another, inshallah, in 13 days, he will leave office, inshallah, and there will be a new beginning, which brings us to our final topic, Robert. Today, Vice President-elect Biden announced his pick to lead the Justice Department and the entire Justice Department team. He's nominating Judge Merrick Garland to serve as Attorney General. He's nominating Lisa Monaco to serve as the Deputy Attorney General. Vanita Gupta, I believe, is Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. And he's also got another nominee who's escaping me. This will be the leadership team at the Department of Justice if they are all confirmed and take office. So what are our thoughts on that, Robert? I mean, I'll share what I've said already, which is that, I think Judge Garland is an excellent pick to restore the independence of the Justice Department, to make it clear that the Justice Department is not the personal attorney of the president. He's been a judge for decades. He has not been overtly political, obviously, since he is a judge. And so that really does bring that independence. At the same time, though, I know many of us were hoping that the Attorney General would be either a woman or a person of color, and would be someone with a clear background in civil rights activism. That has not happened, but we are still hopeful that an Attorney General Garland will do the things that need to be done, pursue a bold and transformative civil rights agenda. It's not enough just to restore the independence of the department. It's not enough just to mind the store. We want to shake up how the store does business. So, Robert, can you tell us about some of the major policy changes that we as CAIR and the American Muslim community are calling on the Justice Department to pursue in the coming months and years?
Yes, most definitely. And by the way, every policy change that I'm going to mention right now is in CAIR's 100 days agenda that we have sent to the Biden administration, that in our call on the newly nominated Attorney General and the Department of Justice team, that we're asking them to review, and that we'll be sending to them in a letter. So what is CAIR asking? The Justice Department has the ability to do incredible good or harm. And as we've seen over the years, the Justice Department has stood by American Muslim communities when they have been persecuted and unable to establish houses of worship because of permitting, or, for issues of school or workplace discrimination. Justice Department attorneys have been there defending, Muslim clients, Americans, African Americans, minorities, when their rights are being harmed. But also under this administration in particular, but past administrations, the Justice Department has written the legal opinions that have justified domestic mass surveillance, the infiltration of the Muslim community by informants, the religious profiling and the profiling by national origin, that these are exemptions to the Department of Justice's guidelines on profiling. So if you're Muslim or Latino, you can still be profiled, and there's a legal argument for that. Justifications for the FBI's racial mapping program, which maps cities by ethnic origins so they know which little neighborhood to get to when they need to. There are so many programs that harm the Muslim community because we have been securitized for the past 20 years. And really, we're calling on the Department of Justice with this new administration coming in, with their independence from the president, with their duty to carry out the letter of the law and uphold the constitutional rights of all Americans, to address these long-lasting issues. And that includes CAIR's challenge to the U.S. watch list, which has been ruled unconstitutional in federal court. We're calling on the Department of Justice to end its reliance on the watch list. We're calling on Garland to help facilitate the closure of the prison at Guantanamo. And again, I think you maybe mentioned earlier that he did have other opinions as a judge, which made it more difficult for detainees to challenge their indefinite status at that prison. So, we hope that he can bridge the gap and, make it clear how he's in line with the Biden administration, which says it's its goal to close the prison at Guantanamo Bay. We're looking.
Let me jump in on that point, Robert, because we didn't mention earlier, that is an important point that, Judge Garland, during his long tenure as a judge, has issued so many rulings, but one of the more significant ones were a few rulings that did make it harder for inmates at Guantanamo Bay to challenge their indefinite detention. That is of great concern. Obviously, judges, are simply, you hope, just interpreting the law as they see it. But at the same time, we really need to know how Judge Garland explains those decisions and whether or not he has an understanding of the law that would make it difficult for people who have been in prison without charge for years to contest that imprisonment, and also whether or not he will pursue the closure of the prison at Guantanamo Bay and remove any legal justifications for that prison to remain open with people being detained without charge for now going on 20 years. So we hope that Judge Garland will address that soon, at the latest in his confirmation hearing.
And on top of that, CAIR is very concerned. We do not want to see a new Guantanamo Bay pop up in Kansas somewhere out in a cornfield. We want there to be either trials for those who deserve to be tried, or for those who have been greenlisted to, be extradited out of that prison to be sent back to a third-party country. So, we want to see the full and complete closure of that prison. We're also, though, this is the Justice Department's job, and it was started under Holder but not finished, going after rogue police officers that do not respect the rights of Black men and women in this country and other minorities, and feel that they are untouchable to the law. And we need the Justice Department to clamp down on the shooting of unarmed Black men and women in this country and other minorities. And we need to do a better job as a nation of pushing back against hate crimes, which I believe are going to rise with the fall of this Trump administration. And we need to do a better job at tracking these hate crimes. There's actually a huge laundry list. I could keep on going on. That's just because that is how much systematic discrimination we need to address in our national security system, in our federal law enforcement agencies, in our immigration agencies, and at state and local agencies and these joint federal task force. We need real reform, and we need independence, and that is what CAIR is calling for, and that's what we've outlined in our 100 Days agenda. And again, when there's a political will, there's a way. So this agenda has been endorsed by the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, which represent dozens of leading national Muslim organizations. This is one of the de facto agendas of the Muslim community for the next 4 years for civil rights justice. So I'm asking everyone, anytime you're meeting with your member of Congress, print this thing out, bring it with you. Say this is the path forward.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you. Absolutely. And Robert, maybe if you have time, you can give us the link to the report and we can drop it in the chat and the comments. So if anyone is watching this later, they'll have a link to the press statement where we released the report.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Great. Thank you, Robert, so much for that. Ayan, so we know what the call to action is. Call your lawmakers, ask them to support the impeachment of President Trump if he does not leave office at the direction of his cabinet. And we will see what happens from there, inshallah. And also, again, Vice President Biden, President-elect Biden, has announced his DOJ nominees. So we look forward to hearing more from them and pressing for some positive change at the Justice Department. Ayan, I'll turn over to you for final remarks and to close us out.
I want to thank our viewers for joining us today. And if you liked this video, please like it and share it. And if you have any topics you want to hear us talk about in the future, leave it in the comments and inshallah we'll get to that.
Yes, thank you. And we're putting the link to the 100-day agenda in the comments, so you can get a hold of that, inshallah. Okay. Thank you all so much. Until the next episode of CAIR on Air, stay safe. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you.